Grew up on a sheep farm here just up the road. Actually borders this land. This land was part of it. We had good border collies. We'd keep 250 to 300 ewes, and we had border collies that would just do anything we asked. And tremendous sheep dogs, tremendous family dogs, good cow dogs. People'd have cows go wild, and we'd get up there and herd them up with our border collies. But we don't have much livestock other than horses and oxen these days, and now we got Mojo. I don't know what his purpose is, but he loves to puddle stomp. It's a bad day to be a puddle when Mojo's around. Of course, then he loves to walk in the house with his muddy feet. He's just obsessed with these puddles. He's our boy. Woohoo, Mojo! So, we're gonna get a saw ready. I've got one that's particularly dull. It's not hard to get one particularly dull in this type of weather. This saw is a 390 Husqvarna. Gosh, it's all of 20 years old, if not older. I used to cut for 2 skidders with it back in the day. It's done a very lot of cutting. Still going. You know, I'm not much on replacing something until we absolutely need to. Normally the first step is to fill it with gas and oil. But our gas is up in the woods, so we're not going to do that right now. We'll wait till we get to the woods. So next step will be to clean the air filter. People just don't do that often enough. I used to have a buddy with a saw shop not far from here, and he would always say that all we do is send your saw out back and file the chain and clean the air filter, bullshit with you for a minute, and charge you $50. I think that's about right. I think that's about all most saws really need. That wasn't too bad. Put that back on. Push the choke in. This is actually the second Husqvarna or Johnson Red model I've had. I cut for a guy who provided me with saws. He provided me with a 2171 for years, or back then it might have been a 2071. I liked it. Pretty good saw, but so I thought I'd try a Husky, and the first one was a 575 Husky. It just came out. Local dealer talked me into buying that, and I mean junk, especially in the winter. No power, no torque, wouldn't start good. I had all kinds of issues. I didn't cut 100,000 feet of timber with it, and I traded it in on this, and this has been great. I mean, right on a sub-zero day, it'll start on the, if I'm quick enough to get my hand off the rope and onto the choke, it'll start on the second pull, usually on the third pull. We'll try that right now. Oh, not quite quick enough. And of course, this saw does what all Huskies do. And both the saws I'm running today, the on-off switch is always bad on Huskies. And they're better than they used to be, but they're still bad. So you got to choke them to life and choke them to death. Just something you deal with. First thing I'm going to do is we're going to dress this bar up a little. And I had a raker gauge yesterday that I can't find today. Oh, I think I know where it is. Like I said, when we do this, we are going to add a nut. Alright, my saws are filthy. There's oil and grease and shit buildup everywhere. I don't worry about it as long as, you know, it's not restricting the clutch or anything. Why in the world do we have a 7-tooth clutch on the 390? 7-tooth sprocket. Huh. Anyway, as long as this right here is clean. That's where your oil comes out. You want your oil to come out of the, let's see, this bar was on this direction. You want your oil to come out of the saw right through that little hole. And as long as that is clean, you're in good shape. I am anyway. So let's put the saw aside for a minute. So I'll put her on the old Kodiak. You ought to know by now. And I'm going to try to find that raker gauge that I could care less about, other than it has a really handy little lip on there for cleaning bars. About time to clean this toolbox out too. We had it yesterday. Of course, we were working in the dark yesterday. Looks like we're painting something. We had it in the dark yesterday, and I probably left it on the tailgate and shut the tailgate, and it's up there somewhere. This saw is pretty well ready to go. Chain's nice and sharp on it. We didn't cut much with it yesterday. We had help yesterday. And so we filed this and filled it, cleaned the air filter yesterday. So the little Johnson Red's ready to cut. Big one, not so much. I 100% would like that raker gauge. And I bet it is not around. Well, anyway, here's what we'll do. We're gonna get rid of the burrs on this bar, and we're gonna flip it. We should have done that last time. I was in a hurry last time. So, centrifugal force, especially if your chain gets loose. This bar's not bad. Maybe I don't need to do much. Centrifugal force, I'm sorry I'm talking in circles, causes a loose chain to wear and have a little gap here and here, depending on which side up your bar is. And dull chains are notorious for that. So we just file the edges here. I've taken to just doing it like this. This saw really isn't bad. Nope. Try it this direction. Look at that. Just a touch there. Not really. Oh, a little bit there. I bet somebody pinched that. Somebody being me. Ooh, that ain't good. Yeah, we got to take a little off right here. Make that smooth. But I pinched that saw and caused that. We should take the old fared, however you say it, and defile this a little. So I think this is made to run right along there. It's probably what you should do. I've taken to just plain using a big file. Get all four sides. I don't very often, get this top to where it's level. That way your chain sits in there and doesn't rock. When I used to cut for two skidders, Might sound like a humble brag, but when I did, sometimes I'd cut for two skidders and hook chokers for at least one of the guys. When I used to cut for two skidders, I was meticulous about all of this, and since I don't do that much anymore, or never for two, occasionally for one I'll cut, but I don't pay as much attention as I should. So we'll clean this groove, particularly after I just filed the bar, so I get all those metal filings out. Not much in there. So I pointed out a few minutes ago, this is where the oil comes from your saw into the bar. Quite a simple thing. That's clean. But we're going to flip this bar so we wear it more evenly. And we have to make sure this is clean. And like I said, I lost my favorite bar cleaning tool. I bet we find it at the landing. There, we got some stuff. That should suffice. So, better have a saw if we're going to put a bar on. Get the old 390 back, and if I had an 8-tooth sprocket, I'd put it on here. Now, what I'm talking about is the size of this sprocket, kind of like gears in a transmission, gears on your bicycle. The bigger this sprocket, the faster your chain turns. This is a 390, 90cc saw, and it has enough power to run an 8-tooth sprocket. Doesn't need a 7-tooth. Maybe that's all I had or something. So someday we'll do things right and we'll put an 8-tooth sprocket on there. Right now I'm gonna tighten up these dogs, bumper spikes I guess they're called. Guess that's a steel wrench. We'll use a Husky Elvin wrench. I've noticed these were loose for a little bit, but you can't tighten these. You can't get to these two bolts with the bar on. So I just told myself I'd wait till the bar's off and try to remember. .390's been a good model. I think it's been replaced with a 592 Husky. And that's a good model. Gets up to speed good, got some snap. My 372s, or that's a John Surred, but it's the same as a 372 Husky. That's been replaced by a 572. That's also a good model. Time will tell if it holds up like a 372. I like them overall. Like the way they run. I don't quite like the way they balance. And as far as I'm concerned, they're all fail in comparison to a 500i steel. There's just no comparison. It's a far superior machine. Steel really nailed it with that. The reason I don't have one is they're expensive, and I got a few saws that run, and I just soon put my money somewhere else. This fancy chainsaws, as long as they're functional and work. But my next saw will all likely be a 500 steel. I've even looked at a 400 a little bit, but I'd like one of my buddies to buy one so I can try it out first. What we should do is tighten some more of these Elvin screws. We'll get her. We'll get the side cover on first. There we we go. So I recall this was a little loose. As long as we're running saws, let's do a little video about chain tension, which is a little hard to quantify. It's kind of one of those things, you know, kind of like line tension when you're driving the horses, your hands on the line. It's hard to put a specific number on it, but so this chain is a little loose. In fact, I'm going to run this for just a second and show you that. Not very loose, just a little. I thought it was sagging down earlier. I bet if I cut a couple blocks of wood, it would be. So chains stretch as they get older. And this is a new chain. I may have filed it one time. Chains stretch, and as they stretch, you know, the steel stretches in those rivets and stuff. And the duller you run one, the more they stretch. And obviously, the longer a bar and chain, the more it stretches. There's just more steel to stretch. So you have to tension them. It should snap back in there pretty good. That is just a little loose. So we're going to tighten that up. And I'm going to over tighten it in hopes of showing you what a too tight chain sounds like. So here we go. Not sure I like that bar wrench. That'll work. So, she's going to start full throttle because we've been choking it to life and choking it to death. I don't know if you can hear when I let off the throttle, it stops really darn quickly. And it kind of sings a little. It goes, "Rrrr." We'll back that off to the right tension. Of course, that's the other damn thing about a saw that you have to choke to start and choke to stop, and you'll see it when we're running the other one today. I got to get down to the shop and get some switches. The other thing is you got to pull them a couple times to get them started. They don't start on the first pull like a properly functioning saw would. You want that to snap back and not hang loose, but not be too tight. I'm going to say in about that neighborhood. I'll run it and see. Occasionally, especially on a new chain, I'll run it just a little too tight because they stretch quickly. This saw gets run more than it should because it's my landing saw. And the logs get dragged through the mud and then cut up out there. Try not to run my cut down saw dull. So here we go. That's plenty tight, but I think it'll work. Here's something you don't want to leave around. I dropped this and that'll put a hole in the tire. So will a saw wrench. That goes in the garbage. And now we'll attack the rakers and the teeth on this saw.